Hello.
Hello, Dean. You're a stupid head.
Homer, is that you?
Okay, so I'm back with another video. Strixhaven has just released on Arena, so I've been looking at doing another deck tech. So I'm showcasing today a deck that I'm calling Mono White Ramp. Now, technically it's not ramp because it's going to be putting the land into a hand rather than on the battlefield in some cases. Some will put it onto the battlefield, but some put it into hand. But nevertheless, it is still more or less like pseudo ramp because you're guaranteeing yourself a land every turn. Rather than, say, if you were playing a mono green deck and you played a Cultivate on turn 3, you've got 5 mana on turn 4, but you might not see a land for the rest of the game. This is trying to achieve a way of getting a plains into your hand so you can drop a plains every single turn. So the main core of the deck that I was looking at was one of my favourite cards ever, which is Solemn Simulacrum. My favourite thing to do in Magic is to copy Solemn Simulacrum like 10 times. It's not the best, like in a late game, it's not a big splashy bomb that's going to win you the game, but the sheer amount of value you get on it sometimes is just worthwhile. And it's easy to do in blue on Arena at the moment. You've got things like Mirror Maid, you've got Sublime Epiphany, which can create a token copy of it. So in blue, it's fairly easy to do. One of the cards I was looking at that's come out in Strixhaven is Pilgrim of the Ages, which is a 3 mana 2/1 spirit that says when it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic plains card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. You can also pay 6 to return Pilgrim of the Ages from your graveyard to your hand, and you can do that at instant speed. So with these two cards, we're looking to, and also the Birth of Meletis, which searches for a basic plains card, we're looking to get as many plains into our hand as quickly as possible, thin our deck out as quickly as possible, and make sure we're definitely guaranteed a land every turn. So I'll go through the deck. We're running 2 Deafening Silencers, which says each player can't cast more than 1 non-creature spell each turn. That does affect us slightly, but to be honest, 9 times out of 10 we're only playing 1 non-creature spell each turn anyway, so it's not hampering us that much. But it does shut down a lot of spell-based decks at the moment, like there's the is quite popular with the Strixhaven Magecraft triggers at the moment. So lots of small spells like Shock and Bolt and stuff like that. So you get one of those down on turn 1, and some of your creatures probably aren't going to die straight away if it's got like a 3 toughness, because they haven't got the 2 shocks in a single turn to be able to kill it off or something like that. The other thing that's popular at the moment is mono white Magecraft. So white's quite versatile at the moment in the directions. You can either go mono white Magecraft, which is lots of combat tricks, but it requires you to play between 4 and 6 spells in a turn to be able to pump your creature to lethal and just alpha strike someone in like 1 or 2 turns. The other way to run it is with Heliod and going very life gain and +1/+1 counter route. But this is something slightly different. So we've got 4 Charming Princes. They are pretty good. We don't ever really go for the life gain, especially unless that extra free life is guaranteeing us staying alive an extra turn when we might die. But we're either going to be using it to scry 2, which is pretty powerful, or to exile another target creature I own and return it to the battlefield. So the third mode on this, Charming Prince, is extremely useful in conjunction with Pilgrim and Solemn, because it means that we can flicker the creatures, get them back, get another land. We also have 4 copies of Flicker of Fate. This is a key component of the deck. It says exile target creature or enchantment and return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So I've used this several times, and you'll see in some videos coming up, to flicker either the Pilgrim or the Solemn. You can also flicker the Birth of Meletis and Elspeth Conquers Death, which gets extra use out of Elspeth Conquers Death exiling something with mana value 3 or greater, so it's extremely good with that. But you can also use it as a combat trick against your opponent, against a deck running something like +1/+1 counters. So one of the Magecraft decks that I faced had like a 10/10 creature and a bunch of counters on it. It swung in to attack me, and I actually Flicker of Fated their creature. So it came back, it took it out of the combat step, so they didn't hit me, and it's now just basically a 1/1 or a 0/1. And they've used up all of their combat tricks, so it can come in handy doing it against your opponent's creatures sometimes as well. We have 4 copies of Banishing Light, which isn't my favourite white removal, because it basically means that they can remove it any time, but it does come in and useful at the free slot. We can also Flicker of Fate it technically if we wanted to change the target and target something a bit more dangerous later on. I might change these out at a later date. Let me know if you come across anything better to swap those out for. Running 2 Maul of the Skyclaves. They're just so good a card, you just can't not run them. So it gives +2/+2 flying and first strike to any of your creatures. So it turns out Pilgrim of the Ages, which are only 2/1s, and Solemns, which are only 2/2s, into quite big creatures with first strike. This is basically how we're finishing the game, more or less, is to Maul of the Skyclaves and just repeatedly hit them with that. It does cost 4 to equip, but if you play it, it can auto-equip to a creature. So we only need 2 copies, because you do kind of shuffle your deck quite a lot. You're going to be running into them quite a lot. Redain, we have 3 copies. Some of them, like I ran out of wild cards, so I've only got 3 copies of Redain anyway. But probably 3's enough. If 4's seems to be too many, so you can either play it as the Redain herself, which costs 3, or you can play it as the Valkmira Protector's Shield, which costs 4. So multiple copies aren't dead in the deck. Like I say, 4's probably a little too many. You run into them too frequently, so 3 seems to be just about the right amount. We have 2 Luminous Broodmoths, or in this case Mothras, which help with your creature. So it says whenever a creature you control without flying dies, return it to the battlefield under its control with a flying counter on it. So mainly the other creatures being Pilgrim of the Ages, Solemn Simulacrum and Charming Prince means we get even more triggers to go and get land. So this is another flying creature, so we've got 2 creatures with evasion as well, which come in handy. We've got 2 copies of Doomscar, maybe once up into a 3rd, but it's basically just a board wipe. See, the good thing about our creatures, aside from, well, even including Mothra really, we don't care if any of these die. All of these are just pawns. We're playing a game of chess, but with nothing. With all of our pieces are just pawns. Charming Prince, once it's entered the battlefield and done its thing, we don't care if it dies. Pilgrim of the Ages, if it dies, we pay 6, we get it back to our hand, and that's easier to do than you would think. And it can be done at instant speed. So you wait until their end step, put it back into your hand, and then play it again. Mothra, if it's out on the battlefield with other creatures, means that when they die, they just come back with flying anyway, and you sacrifice a Mothra, fair enough, but you can get it back with Elspeth Conquers Death. Solemn, we don't care if it dies because we draw a card. Redain, again, another one we can get back later with Elspeth Conquers Death, and we're running 3 copies of Elspeth Conquers Death. I did try it with 4 copies, but again, I was finding I was running into them too frequently, not being able to cast them. 3 seems to be the perfect amount. So this is another key piece of our removal. We're banishing light, they might be able to get it back. Elspeth Conquers Death means that they're not getting it back. Makes it non-creature spells cost 2 more, so any spell-heavy deck's going to struggle to get over that hump. And then we'll return a creature back to the battlefield with +1/+1 counter. So that'll either be Mothra or Redain if they're in the bin. If not, we're quite happy just to get back a Solemn, a Pilgrim, just to get that land again. And then finally, we're running a single copy of Ugin. Ugin, with the whole of the rest of the deck, is a bit of a nombo. We don't want to be exiling most of the stuff on our side, but it does exile coloured stuff only. So it does work with Solemn. If Solemn's your only creature out, and you exile everything else, you're still going to have a 2/2 that you can swing in with. Maybe drop them all on the Skyclaves afterwards. But at the very least, you can +2 and deal 3 damage to any target. You can bolt them in the face. You can start removing creatures. Just count it up to do its ultimate, really. And if you get to ultimate it with this deck, you're probably just winning anyway. Finally, we've got 20 land, 20 plains, and 2 Castle Ardenvale. So Castle Ardenvale, good for making 1/1 chump blockers or adding to your board state. And we're only running 22 land because of the amount of land that we can get with Birth of Meletis and Pilgrim of the Ages being so easy. We can actually run slightly fewer land than normal. So you'll see in some of the games a hand to keep is 2 plains, a Birth of Meletis and a Pilgrim, and whatever other cards you've got is more than enough of a playable hand because you're guaranteed to that land. Unless you go up against something like a Croaxa deck or something that's making you discard cards, that's a little bit bad for us. But even then, it's still not that bad. Discarding the Pilgrim of the Ages, it goes in your bin, you pay 6, you get it back again. None of these cards really matter enough to worry about them getting killed. Exiling them with Ugin is a problem, but you can always just obviously go X of 0, get rid of all their tokens if you're running a token strategy, and all your stuff's just fine. So that is the deck, mono white ramp. And now I'll lead into some gameplay footage where I've got a few games, and you'll be surprised at how frequently you can actually win with this deck. It performs a lot better than I thought it would. I'm loving the new Pilgrim of the Ages. I think it's a great card. 6 sounds expensive, but if you get into a stalling board state where you and your opponent's just top decking, it's basically guaranteeing you a creature and more land. So yeah, I've had a lot of fun with this deck. It's an interesting way of running mono white beyond the usual life gain or the combat pump spells that are being used at the moment. So try it out. Guarantee you'll have fun with it, and I'll include some gameplay footage here. Okay.
Match 1. Match 2. Match 3. Match 4. Match 5.
And so there you go, that was the deck. I hope that's given you some idea of how the deck functions and what to do with it. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you actually had a chance to try this deck out for yourself, please leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought of it. If there's anything you didn't like or did like, any improvements that could be made. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.